Everybody, we got the trucks pretty much situated for winter, all outfitted, ready with the plow, sander in it. Everything's done, oil undercoating. So what we do now is we'll bring the tractors in. The Kubota L2501 behind me. All this does in the winter is load my sander. Works out good. I leave it in a bay. I keep my sand in one bay of a lean-to I got out there, and then in the next couple bays over, I keep this undercover. But it does it. I'm starting this at 2 in the morning when it's pretty frigid out. I've had issues a couple of years where, the fuel gels. So I try to treat, I just topped it off with winter mix diesel. And I also added a little bit of additive to it, knowing that now, and I don't have issues since I've done that. I also put a new fuel filter. I changed the oil. In the winter when you're starting these, when they're cold, I'd rather have that fresh oil in them. It wasn't ready for an oil change or the air filter I did just take out and blow out a minute ago because it's not that old. It's only a couple months old. So I'll show you what I gotta do. So you got your cartridge style filter that goes in that for the fuel oil filter. But we're gonna put new oil, new fuel filter in it. Like I said, I just treated that fuel. I blew the air filter out because the last few weeks it's been pretty dusty. It's kind of a weird thing in the winter. You think, oh, it won't be dusty, but when it's real cold, the dirt roads are dusty. Another thing I'm going to point out if someone's watching this is this alternator. I couldn't believe the dust I just blew out of there. Something I've never paid. I normally power wash these, but it's too late and cold this season. And I don't want to power wash this and have it freeze up because it's going right back outside today. I just want to show people I'm going to grease it real good, get it ready for loading the trucks this winter. But I just figured I'd do a quick shot of what we're doing. It's not a bad fuel filter to change. That canister normally unscrews pretty easy. The 2501 has this style. Comes with a little O-ring you got to pop in. It goes up in there. It kind of sets in there. This one's kind of stuck in there. I gotta grab a pair of pliers. You'll see that kind of just, it sits in there in a groove. But like I said, it was in there hard, stuck in there pretty good. Most of the time, I change this probably 4 times a year. When I power wash it, if I see this plastic and it's not pretty tan looking, I normally change it. That really hasn't been in there that long and it's pretty black, but that's the crappy fuel of buying. If I bring this, any of my equipment that comes in, for like if I break a hydraulic hose and I run it in this garage, I normally do an oil change, put the date on it. Normally I'll write like the 2501, I do this often enough. Like winter comes, I always want new filters and everything in it. I really don't care. I see videos all the time where guys are all gelled up and this and that, and they'll show the filter, and it's like you can tell that's the problem. So that sits in there. This plastic cartridge fits in these little grooves, so you just spin it till it drops in. Then when you tighten that, there's a spring in there. As soon as this goes in, that's why that O-ring's there, goes up around that. This will fill with fuel. It's an automatic fuel shut off, basically. See where something started building a nest up in there, and I blew that out and it's still in there. I'm gonna let that drain, so we'll let that sit and drain for a while. I don't know what it was, something kind of built up underneath the fuel tank. Something started building a nest already, go figure. I've never had that for an issue though, ever, so kind of weird. You'll find when the motor isn't got issues, you pull the oil plug out of these little Kubota motors, the oil will drain better. That's why I wanted to do that. We're gonna let that fly till after lunch. We just brought the MX6000 in. This needs a complete service. This gets a blade, a Myers power angle blade put on it. A couple little things I gotta address. Some wiring, the loop on the outside came off, but this needs all oil, hydraulic filters. The grater blade I leave on it. The grill, I had something poke through a limb that I was pushing brush one day. A limb came up and smashed that. Everything still works. I'm actually going to try to pull that out and either plastic weld it or glue it back together. I don't really want to put a grill in it if I don't. All the headlights are still in line. Nothing broke. It's got a crack here, and then this is just, like I said, I believe I can get it to come back out. I cleaned it up real good too, because like it's pretty dusty and dirty from the season. This gets used a lot. This goes up and down miles of road grading. I had to flip that cutting edge this year. Another thing while it's in here is I think the very ends are what get chewed off that pretty bad, because you're digging down in to get it, you know, in the spring to get things. So I think I'm going to actually double the cutting edge on the ends for that reason, is so that you have a little more digging power without messing up that. I believe that cutting edge right now is $380, so I don't want to replace it any more than I have to. Other than that, this thing's stayed pretty good. I did have a pin come out of it once, but it was a weird thing. I replaced it with the wrong pin because that's all I had at the house. It worked. It was just way too long. Then I loaded the truck when the job was done, and I see when I dumped the dirt into the back of the dump truck, I see the pin, so I found the original pin. I thought it was pretty cool. But this one here, I want to check all the lights, the strobe, make sure everything's working. This actually does a lot of plowing on camp roads, so I may also look for a set of chains for the front tires or rear tires, one end or the other. A lot of guys say the rear tires are the best to chain up. I know on the loaders they normally just do the front tires, and that seems to be where this could use a little more traction. I do think the turf tires would be better, just for that one thing, plowing. Other than that, I'd pop them. I actually put a hole in one of these this year with a big spike, and we patched it, put a tube in it. And I still want it. I normally, when I buy a tractor, I normally buy a front tire and rim pack extra, because over the years I just found you have a tire go down, it's normally a front tire. It's normally because you're driving into a crappy pile too close, and that's what gets you. I've already put a new air filter. I marked the filter inside. I just put 1123 to the month and year. And I do the same thing on the cover. Last time I power washed it, it came off, but I normally do the same thing when I put the new fuel filter on. I'll mark it. Most of the time, my equipment's in. Like if this comes in for about anything that, like a tire flat or anything, I normally change the oil. So I put filters on these way more often than I have to. I don't think it's a bad idea. This is probably one of the machines that gets the most fuel put through it. It's pretty cold outside at this point. Probably, I would have loved to have power wash this. I just didn't have time. So I didn't want all that diesel. I cleaned it up pretty good. Not working the greatest because it's cold as heck out. I just turned the heat on today, so kind of cool with this one. This was sitting in the cold all night. But now, I like how they did the MX 6000 has wing nut type bolts that hold the side panels on. 2501's bolted on, but this is a little quicker, less tools digging out. I want to make sure there's a couple filters. I thought I grabbed the right one. I always snug the oil filters on, just because of the location they're at, they can get hit. Can't say that's the best location to have that filter, but kind of goes down onto the front end. Let that drain. At this point, we've got the oil change done, fuel filter, air filter. I checked the antifreeze to make sure it was still good. I try to change the antifreeze out like every 3 years, and normally by then it starts discoloring, but this is still pretty fresh. This machine has 300 and something hours on it right now. So I treated the fuel. What I've been using lately is this K100. It's a product that Napa sells. I just started using the diesel stuff this year, but the gas stuff, like if you have a big machine that holds like 5 gallons of gas and you got a water issue with it, you buy the gasoline version of the K100 and it will, unless you got like a half a gallon of water in it, this will disperse that water in a way where you can run it through. I got a pretty good gulp of water and some gas I got for my small engine stuff this spring, and my zero turn had a pretty good gulp in it of water, to put it bluntly. And Napa, the guy at Napa mentioned this, and I dumped a bottle of this in. I think it's like 6 gallons. I think that holds 4.5 gallons or 5 gallons, something like that. And I just couldn't believe it ran. I was having such an issue. Like every few minutes, I'd take the fuel filter off, drain it out. And I do believe I got the bulk of the water out. But there was definitely, you could see the blackness floating around in it. I put this in it, I ran it till it was empty that day, put new fuel in. But the K100 stuff, it seems to be a pretty good product as far as fuel goes. And then once I mentioned it, there's a small engines guy in my town. I asked him about it, and he said he's been using this for, I think, 3 or 4 years. So I'm going to try it with the diesel. Everything I read about it seems like a pretty good product. It doesn't hurt. Same thing with this machine. This gets started up like cold if I decide to plow the roads with this. This doesn't sit in a heated garage in the winter. Matter of fact, this a lot of times just is sitting at my daughter's house up the road, and she's the one that gets it going in the morning. But I just figured there was like loose ends here and there. I want to clean the cab up, clean the glass up, make sure all the strobes are working. It seems like everything's working. This had a little sticky thing on it that was holding it. I'm going to do something to hold that back. I did catch that this summer. I don't want to hang it out all winter because when you're pushing banks back, you might run into a limb. What I'm going to do now is try to work on that, getting that grill pulled out and getting that strobe light hung properly. I just want to show this one's done. I ended up doing all the fluids, checked the antifreeze to make sure that was still good, hooked the blade up, everything's working good, checked the hydraulic oil again. It's kind of a weird thing, that sits all summer long, and I don't know where the fluid goes, but when you plug it back in, it seems like there's a big old air thing that has to get filled with fluid again, so I always check it. Another thing I did, let me shut it off. Another thing I did was add these pieces of cutting edge on each edge of that grader blade, because in the springtime sometimes I get aggressive angling that down in, and same thing when you're pulling out ditches, so you end up that way is pretty even most of the time. But like I said, this year I had to really get into cleaning some ditches out with it, and I noticed the end curled right up on me. It's funny because that's a cutting edge off of a big 11-foot commercial plow that I got from somebody. I cut it, and those bolts actually lined up to the factory bolts in that cutting edge. So, but I did both sides. I just think it's going to be a good addition. Now if I dive down in with that to dig up the edge, we'll loosen stuff up. I also have a grader box with scarifiers in it, so that's what I normally use to break the road up. But like I said, first time 3 or 4 seasons I've used it, that blade I flipped that cutting edge this year, so I think that will help. I'd like to get 2 years out of it once I flip it. So last time I checked, that's a $380 cutting edge, and I think you can they make one that's a little bit better carbide steel, and I think it's like $620, which is probably what I'll get when I do replace it. Other than that, everything cleaned up pretty good. I cleaned the paint up, cleaned the glass up, greased everything, so we should be good for the season. I topped off the fuel, treated it, and this will go through probably 4 tanks of fuel in the winter doing its normal plowing. Other than that, these are pretty fuel efficient. That's why I like my Kubota stuff. And we're bringing the loader in next, and all that needs is I believe an oil change and an air filter. Everything else was done not too long ago. We got the 430 loader in, and I'm going to change out some filters. It needs an oil change, fuel filter, I noticed the water separator looked mucky, so to get them cleaned out right, they have a hose on them. You can unscrew it's like the old Pepcock that used to be on a radiator, but I found you better off unbolting it, getting it cleaned right out, especially with winter coming. I should say winter's here, but when this is going to be getting started when it's real cold. Again, I'm going to top this off, treat the fuel a little heavier than normal. I treat my fuel in my, I have two 275s I keep off-roading, and I think it's a 160, but I treat all of it when I fill them in the fall. But the fuel that's in these, winter plowing, you don't know, this might sit for 3 weeks if we don't get a real bad storm, so I try to treat the fuel that's in it a little heavier than normal. We're going to clean this up a little bit, and that will be it for everything will be ready for the winter, so it's a good feeling. Hydraulic filter, oil filter, air filter. I drained, this is a water separator, which I was surprised how much, the fuel we're buying now is crap. I mean, I get it from 2 or 3 different places, but like, I question the quality of the diesel. All these guys having problems with their pickup trucks all the time. That's something, if I wouldn't have caught, there was enough water in that separator that probably would have froze and cracked that plastic cover. I want to say I drained that less than 2 months ago. So, and this time of year, this machine doesn't get a lot of hours put on it. I did screen with it 1 week, but you shouldn't be having that amount of crap. This one's pretty much ready. All the strobes are working. I just got to grease it, and we're done with this one. But I just figured I'd take a shot, things to look for. But anybody that's going to use their equipment during the winter needs to check the water separator. It aggravates me too. Stuff like this, Kubota stopped putting those on the 2501. I believe my 2501's a 2015. It didn't have one on it. I think any diesel should have that on it at this point. Seeing every piece of equipment I got other than the 2501, I believe, has got a water separator on it, and it's amazing how much crap gets caught with that. Also, don't think it's, even if you get the water to pass through, is not a good idea. It's like, I know fuel's expensive, but if I find out I had a bad load, I'd get rid of it. I mean, I don't care. I try to run off-road diesel most of the time. I'm not gonna lie to you. If we're going by a regular diesel place, if I'm going to a job and this is on empty, I'll stop and put regular on-road diesel in it. The last couple years, there hasn't been a big difference in price neither, but I always run a little bit of an additive in these too, because I don't trust the new diesel. So these things very seldom, because of the emissions on them, smoke. Number one, the 2501 smokes a little bit when you start it, which tells me it's getting plenty of lubrication. These things run so efficient and clean now, it scares you. So I always run a little additive. I normally run Howes in it. This is the one I use most of the time when I can get it. I'm not afraid. There's other brands I use, but Howes. I got a couple friends that are diesel mechanics, and they kind of push that on me as far as making sure the lubrication part of it for your pumps and stuff. So I've never had an issue. All my Kubotas I've ever had, I've never had an engine issue, even really a fuel related issue. I did have my old 2501. I did convert to an electric fuel pump because the other one was starting to fail, and they didn't have one in stock. So I think it runs. I never went back and changed it. And I won't lie to you. I won't tell you what Kubota dealer told me to do it, but one of the dealers actually told me on the older machines, a lot of times they'll just put an electric fuel pump, and I did. And I think I might have a little more power. So I have the old mechanical style that go on the side of the motor on the 2501 still. At least in 15 they did. I'm just going to grease it now, clean up the glass, double check everything, make sure it's good for the winter. Same thing with this. I checked the antifreeze, make sure it was still good. This one will probably have enough hours on it in the spring, so I'm going to change the antifreeze out anyways. I don't know exactly what it does, but I know you can really hurt the internals of your motor once the antifreeze, even if it's good for the below freezing part of it. It's got some molecule or something. I don't know the whole story behind it, but they really suggest you change them out. This is going to be my 3rd season with it, so like I said, I'm not gonna be afraid to change it anyways, but it's expensive. That's something I want to mention during this video. This is a very expensive, to change fluids, transmission, like to change all the fluids in a machine like this is not a cheap. I'm not going to talk prices, but I brought 3 machines in the last 4 days, and it's a substantial amount of money to get filters and all the stuff that, you know, the oils, hydraulic oil. And I really do push the hydraulic oil for Kubota. I use their stuff, the UDT and the UDT2, whatever machine calls for, I get. I try to do all Kubota filters. Got all 3 tractors ready. All this 2501 does is load sand in a sander. So I keep it right, the sand's like 25 feet away from here, so I keep it tucked in there. We try to put everything away in the winter, stuff that sometimes you don't worry about leaving in the back of a truck, whatever, but the sun just messes with it and you don't want it, you know, getting broke up. But over here we got the other 2 tractors. The MX6000 probably sees the most use of all the tractors in the winter. That does quite a bit of camp road plowing. I always say that's a Myers plow, but it's actually a Curtis, which got bought out. One way or the other, they got bought out. It was the same company for a long time. A little different shade paint. Got the grill glued back together. It ain't the best job, but it's better than having it broken. It put the lights. The lights are mounted, which one of those was just kind of hanging there. But other than that, all the strobes are working. We got all 3 tractors ready for the winter use. All new fluids, filters, air filters. Treated the diesel a little heavier in the tanks than I do. I keep all my tanks treated, but like I said, these get started up a lot of times like 2 in the morning when it's real cold. So I always treat the tank that's in it, and it's going to take quite a while to go through a tank this time of year when it's just plowing. You'll plow a storm and you might not get into the storm for a week or so. So this is probably only going to get 4 tanks put in it over the whole winter. So we're going to call getting the tractors prepped for winter. We're going to call this video here. Like I said, people send me messages once in a while, and I actually answer my phone when someone calls me too and asks me questions. But they ask me, you know, to show other parts of the business that most people don't know about. But this is part of the business, getting this stuff ready. Doing this all myself saves a lot of money too. I mean, there are some people, I know, I watch other YouTubers, they pay a mechanic to do every little thing to their vehicles and equipment. I just, to me, it's a waste of money. Very pricey. To send this to a dealer and get it done is an expensive thing. That's why I do them myself. But anyways, I figured I'd call the video here. Again, I'm going to say, if you like my content, please like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.